good evening. This recipe is done especially for Olinda. Olinda, I'm doing hot crust buns. I've never ever tried it before. This is the first time I'm trying it, and because of you, I'm getting this videoed by Mr. D'Souza, who's operating the camera for me. So let's start. It's hot crust buns. We have to have 4¼ cups of flour. I'm using bread flour here. You can use all-purpose flour too, but bread flour is better flour, and the buns turn out good. Then we have 1½ cups of sultanas, about 200 grams. The sultanas are slightly dried, so what I plan on doing is soaking it and leaving it for some time till it gets soft. 1½ cup of milk, 1 egg, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of yeast. This is dry yeast. Most of the time we use dry instant yeast, so this is the dry instant yeast. And this is cinnamon powder. I've used here 2 teaspoons. You can use more if you want. If you like more cinnamon in the bun, you can use more. And 1/2 cup of sugar and 50 grams of butter. So first thing we do to find out whether your yeast is good, you need to proof your yeast. So that's by warming the milk. Don't make it too hot, because you can also kill the yeast that way. So you warm your milk so that it's not too hot. So you add in your yeast, and from the sugar of the half a cup, you can take two teaspoons of this. So I mean, it doesn't have to be exact. It's just what you're trying to do is just to bloom your the yeast, to see whether the yeast is good. Now this I have to leave it for about 5 to 10 minutes for it to bloom. You'll see how, if you come closer, you'll see this is how the yeast looks. And after some time, about 10 minutes or so, I'll show you what happens to this yeast. What I like to do is mix the salt into the flour first, like spread it nicely, and then with a whisk. I like to use the whisk just to mix the ingredients. Not when you're putting the wet ingredients. So you do that first. Put in your rest of the sugar. Mix and mix so that it goes all around. Then your cinnamon, just like I said, if you want more cinnamon, you can add later. This is the first time, like I said, I'm making the hot crust buns, so I'm not going to add more, because it's better less than more for the first time. So if I think next time I need more, I will. So I put in this and mix this up. Here they also add allspice, which is a pumpkin spice. I don't have that, and I'm not too sure what taste it gives, so I'm not going to be adding that. And then I get rid of this, and I start with a wooden spoon, the back of the wooden spoon, like a round spoon. I prefer that because I don't have a stand mixer. So try and make a nice well. In this well, I am going to put 1 egg, melted butter, the 50 grams that I had. I melted it, by the way. You can use the micro oven, or you can leave it out for some time for it to melt. And the lovely bloomed yeast and milk. Try and scrape the bottom, because sometimes the sugar remains at the bottom, and sometimes yeast also. And then the soaked sultanas. Like I said, I like to use the back of a wooden spoon, the rounded bit, and then I just start turning it around like I would do a stand mixer would do, and keep turning till it forms a wet dough. So if you come closer, Mr. D'Souza, I just want to show them the dough. See, it becomes a little difficult when you don't have a stand mixer, but this is the way it should look, a wet dough. And now it's time to use your hand. So I need this in the bowl because it still needs to combine, and once I get it together, then I would use a board, and I'll knead it on the board. If you have a nice big countertop, you can do it on the countertop, which makes it easier to roll to knead the dough. So and this kneading, if you don't have a stand mixer, then you have to really knead it for at least 10 to 15 minutes till it combines and forms sticky soft dough. I'm still doing it in the bowl because I'm trying to get all the flour together. So it takes a little time, but eventually it does come together. Don't add more water or flour, because that's when the recipe goes wrong. So yes, see, it did take time, but it formed. Now you have to get this onto a board. So like I said, this is how it looks. So I'm going to now bring it onto a board, or if you got a nice countertop, I said, and that's when your muscles start working. So that's what you're going to do. Here too, you should not don't add too much flour or anything, but if it sticks, then you can start adding, but I wouldn't. So this is an exercise of about maybe 10 to 15 minutes till the dough gets soft. So what I usually do is this and in. See this, you feel that the dough is getting a little sticky, but try not to add flour, because then it becomes very dry in the end. Some people I know, they use they knead, and then at the end they put in the raisin so that it doesn't drop. But I think sometimes, I've done it twice. I mean, a different dough where I had to use some fruits in, where I used it at the end. But I think this way it does get mixed nicely. So let's see what happens. And then the heavy breathing starts because they're getting tired. Good form of exercise. If they drop out like this, just push them back in and knead again. I can feel this, I can get the smell of the cinnamon, but I think I could have used more. Maybe I'll try it later when maybe I can dust it with cinnamon when I'm serving. Cinnamon powder, that's. Oh, and another fact, I don't know whether, not a fact, but what I heard, some people, like I thought hot cross buns used to be had on a Thursday, on Maundy Thursday, but when I was reading about it, I heard that traditionally hot cross buns are made on Good Friday and served while breaking fast, that is in the evenings. So you can see the dough getting a little bit better. This will take me quite some time now. If you want, I mean, I don't know how good the bread flour is there in back home or wherever, because each bread flour is different consistency, and I noticed that this bread flour that I bought recently from Costco is a very strong flour. So either you need a good mixie, or what I've learned, or what I've been doing is I've been mixing the dough and I have been leaving it to proof overnight in the fridge, and then it becomes a little, the dough becomes nice and elastic. So you know what, I will see how it goes. If it doesn't, then I am going to put it in the fridge overnight and leave it to see what happens. Okay, so what you do is, how you test the dough is when you press and it bounces back, means it is almost done. To me this is done, but I'm not too happy with the consistency of the dough. See, if you look, I don't like this. It seems okay, but I still need to work on it a little more. Okay, so I think I'm going to leave it overnight in the fridge. I think I've worked on it enough, or I have got a good workout, I think. So what I usually do is I make it a ball. I put it into a well-oiled bowl, which is a bowl like this, and don't lose the lovely raisins. Push it in so that it stays in. I got this, a well-oiled bowl. Put it into the bowl, cover it up with plastic wrap, or a cover. If you have a cover for this thing, put it on, or plastic wrap, and leave it in the fridge. At least I'm trying this because, like I said, I've noticed this flour, this dough, the flour is very strong and it needs a mixer rather than hand, so it takes a longer time. So if you look at the dough, how I'm pushing it in and how it comes back, it is done. But if I keep it longer, it's the bread turns softer. Okay, so I'll see you all in a bit. So this is what the dough would look like after a few hours of proofing. What I had to do was I had to get this out of the fridge. I kept it for some time and covered it and put it in the oven with the light on. It has a 70 degrees temperature where it helps proof the dough better. Now what you need to do is punch out the air, whatever gases you get in. You have to just get all those gases out, and then see, you'll find them a little bubbly, so you have to push out all that gas. And get it onto a board so you can start forming the buns. Okay, so just need it a little more just so that we get all those bubbles out. See, have you noticed how the dough is a little softer now? And try and get these raisins in. So I think this should be good enough. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, since my board is small, I'm going to make half of this dough and I'll work with half. This is a dough cutter, but if you'll have a knife, that also will do. you have to remember that when you're working with your dough, whatever dough you're not working with, you need to cover it so that it doesn't get dried. So put it back in the bowl, whether you're going to cover it with tea towel or with a plastic wrap, whatever it is, you need to cover it so that it doesn't get dried, because it will take a little time to work with the dough now. So what I'm trying to do is make trying to get the gas out first of all, and then I'm going to try and form them into, okay, that should be good. Okay, once before doing the forming the dough into balls, you need to do the keep your tray ready. So I've got a 9 by 13 baking tray. It's a deep tray, so you have to line it with a parchment paper. This is a parchment paper. I have just realized about a year into my baking that I was using wax paper instead of parchment paper, and that is why the bread used to get stuck. Anyway, I've learned a new trick from one of the channels that I was watching, where they just said pinch the bottoms, sorry, the sides, that way and that way, just to give you a rough estimate of. So you get that, and then you fold it in. So fold in there. And this parchment paper, you can use both sides. It doesn't matter. So you get that this way. Just cut the corners a bit so that it fits in. So this is what it would look like. So you don't have to be exact, don't have to worry about it, because once you put the bread, it will push the paper back, okay? So we'll leave that aside, and let's start on our bread. So we shall pick a piece, roll it up. If you need dough, little flour you can add, but I don't want to. I am going to try and do it without any. Another thing I have done, I usually try to do, not very precise, but I try to weigh the dough. Roughly about 70 grams each piece should be good. Okay, so 67, let's see. I don't want them too big. This is really big. I don't know what my bird is calculating there. 68. So let's make it 68 or so. So I try and, yeah. So okay, about 68, 67 roughly. So what this is what I like to do is again try and knead that flour, sorry, the dough, anything out. So what you need to do is keep the rough side at the bottom, see? So that, sorry, at all times you have to keep this covered. So let's drop this in here and take one at a time. So that's how I roll it. Hands like this, and it goes. So you get all the rough ends at the bottom, so it looks nice from the top. And you can just pinch this like that. Just pinch it and keep it. Put it down. Push those raisins in, because if it, Once it starts cooking, it bursts and it comes out. There you go, that way. And then you'll start lining your, putting it in the tray. So that goes there. Let's just this one. Same way. And yes, you will have some raisins more in one piece than the other. Doesn't really matter. Pinch and pinch. And say about this much, because you have to go to keep it for a proofing for another 60 minutes or so till it proofs, not 100%, about 70% or so, and then you start baking. Okay. So this is now almost an hour after the proofing. You'll notice that the buns are a little smaller, but I have made them tinier than the recipe asks for. I've preheated the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and as that is heating, I've made not I, but Mr. D'Souza made a nice parchment cone for me, and this is to do the piping. So for the piping for the crosses, this is half a cup of flour and 95 ml of cold water. You need to mix this together to form the piping for the cross. If you feel it is too thick, you can add a little more water. So this is the consistency. It should be thick but not too thick and not too thin, otherwise it will just run. When it's baking, it will just be too thin and it will run down the buns. I'll try doing this. Take a spoon and scoop the cross icing into it. Should have used a bigger one, but anyway. I'm going to cut the end, and so we are now going to pipe this. You can see that my hand is not very steady, but I think that looks about okay. So I'm now making the glaze for the buns. I'm adding sugar and hot water just to form a glaze, so that it gives a nice shine. You have to mix it till the sugar is diluted. This will give a little more sweetness to the bun, as well as a little shine, because once you get the buns out, they actually don't look glazed. And as soon as I get the buns out of the oven, I have to put it on it so it soaks into the buns. These are the buns out of the oven, nice and hot, well risen. This this is the second tray. I'm going to put it up here just because it's very, very hot. So the glazing now. You see the color, how it changes now? It gives it a nice shine. That's what it looks like inside. It's nice and soft and hot. So you can have it with butter. I think let's try a piece.
Hot cross buns, hot cross buns. 1 a penny, 2 a penny, hot cross buns.
Very nice.
Hot cross buns, hot cross buns. 1 a penny, 2 a penny, hot cross buns. Give them to your daughters, give them to your sons. 1 a penny, 2 a penny, hot cross.